This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Former Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe buried in his native village. Egyptian armed forces announces major progress in counter-terrorism campaign. And how Sino-Africa ties are improving connections between China and the African continent. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also ahead on Africa Live. Zambia to start importing electricity from South Africa. And in your sport, Kenyans and Ethiopians stand by Netherlands' Sifan Hassan in the women's 10,000 meters race at the ongoing IAAF World Championships in Doha, Qatar. And let's begin in Zimbabwe, where former President Robert Mugabe has been buried in his home village. The burial comes after Mugabe's family rejected the government's offer to bury him in the National Heroes Acre located in the capital, Harare. Family and loved ones paid their respects in the village of Kutama. There were no senior government officials present. Mugabe ruled Zimbabwe before being ousted and replaced by his then deputy, Emerson Mnangagwa.
Our hearts are bleeding because we have lost one of our own. Our hearts are bleeding.
Thousands of Egyptians flocked the streets of Cairo to show their support for President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi as he returned from the UN General Assembly in New York. The rallies are meant to counter protests against el-Sisi's 5-year rule. The president has also warned against attempts to discredit his administration. Rare demonstrations took place last week in response to a call of action from an Egyptian businessman living in self-imposed exile in Spain. He accused el-Sisi of allegedly wasting public funds. Police have arrested around 1,000 people in connection with the protests.
I have joined these rallies to support Egypt, to stand against conspirators who want to destroy what we have built. All residents of my neighborhood decided to join these rallies to say we want stability.
These people are here to support Egypt and its president and its army and its people, to say that we want stability and security. No matter how tight the economic situation is, we will accept it as long as we are building a better and stronger Egypt. We will follow our president till the end for the sake of a better future for our country.
First of all, I'm here to say long live Egypt. Today, I can easily and safely travel all over the country because of the roads the president built. In my village, we lack sewer systems and clean water. Since el-Sisi took office, all these utilities are now available, thanks to him.
We are all here to support our nation. We don't want to go back to the instability during the January 25th revolution. Today the country is progressing and developing. This rally is to make all nations in the world to see how much support the president has in the country. The president and the world need to see this support.
Meanwhile, the Egyptian Armed Forces has announced major progress in its counter-terrorism campaign in the Sinai. For 6 years, Egypt has been fighting militant insurgency in North Sinai. In recent years, the army has scaled up its military operation. In the statement released this weekend, it confirmed the death of 118 extremists during its latest operations. More on Egypt's fight against terrorism with CGTN's Adel Mahroui.
152 vehicles confiscated. 273 improvised explosive devices located and destroyed. 118 extremists in 33 hideouts killed. These are some of the numbers the Egyptian army announced in one of its biggest blows to terrorist groups in North Sinai.
These terrorist groups used to have bigger presence, huge weapons supply. But with the continuous military efforts in the Sinai, it managed to engage in fights around their hideouts and kill many of them. They are now very little in number, and they have been chased away from cities. They now take shelter on the desert outskirts.
Egypt is slowly and gradually winning its fight on terrorism. This weekend's announcement also shows how restless these groups are. They have dug 11 underground tunnels to smuggle supplies through the Egyptian borders. All have been demolished in the latest military missions announced. With the arms and financial resources cut, these groups are left to suffocate.
The remnant militants are too weak now. They only lightly attack checkpoints with small number of security forces. They can't attack big military camps, and if they do, it's usually a suicide mission. This is paving the road for massive economic development in North Sinai, which will help to complete the defeat of terrorism.
The Armed Forces' comprehensive military battle against terrorism is in its second year, and it still continues. The comprehensive plan enters a new phase to focus on development. And the new achievements announced this weekend will encourage the state to speed up the economic plan it has for North Sinai. Adil Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Officials at Shanghai's free trade zone have announced a batch of new measures to deepen reform and opening up. CGTN's Linan explains how freer flows of labor and capital has business booming.
Chen Kai deals with a large amount of money every day. His company purchases expensive medical equipment from abroad at their customers' request and leases the machines to them, saving medical companies the need to buy equipment with lump sum payments.
Each of our orders stand at around 50 to 60 million yuan. The highest can be about 300 million.
In most cases, the leasing company doesn't buy with cash either, but relies on long-term bank loans. For the last 4 years, the company has used a bank account system called Free Trade Account that lets the company freely convert currencies.
We started using the FT account in 2015. We find it helpful since it provides more competitive rates and longer loan periods.
Since the system allows for the free flow of currencies, companies can now borrow from international lenders who offer lower financing costs. More than 70,000 FT accounts have opened in Shanghai, through which companies loaned more than 1.3 trillion yuan by the end of 2018.
It's not just money that's flowing more easily through Shanghai. Measures have been taken to ease the flow of talent as well, allowing companies to attract more human capital from abroad.
Hong Qiu is a Chinese German and the country manager of a world-leading biotech company. She was the first to get a Chinese green card as one of the free trade zone foreign talent.
With that card, I think, for instance, my child can get also a local education. I can buy property. If you read the back of my card, it actually says it provides the same benefits as almost as a local resident.
Qiu is the beneficiary of China's first talent scheme to allow free trade zones to recommend foreign talents for permanent residence. Shanghai has relaxed work permit and green card policies in recent years.
We urgently need top talent. Now the criteria for green card application are based more on market and industry standards.
New measures have been taken in Shanghai to deepen reform and further opening up, making it more appealing to do business.
59,000 companies have registered in the Shanghai Free Trade Zone since its establishment in 2013, more than in the previous 2 decades put together. It created 1/4 of Shanghai's GDP and tax income, with only 1/5 of the city's land area.
The mechanisms and policies being piloted here are proliferating, with other free trade zones around the country adopting them as their own. It's a trend that planners hope will contribute to the high-quality development of the nation. Linan, CGTN, Shanghai.
The main celebrations for China's National Day will take place on October the 1st in Beijing. But across the country, events are planned to mark the special occasion. CGTN's Lindy Mtongana is in Shanghai with more. Lindy, what's the mood like in Shanghai ahead of National Day?
Well, Beatrice, as you've said, of course, the main celebrations in honor of the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China will take place in Beijing. But the pride and patriotism can be felt across the country, not least of all here in Shanghai. Now, Shanghai is a global hub of finance, innovation and trade. And of course, that's probably best represented by the skyscrapers you see behind me. And it is this iconic skyline that will act as a canvas for the city's celebrations. A spectacle of light and color will take place on these buildings. Over the past few days, the city has been conducting some rehearsals, but the main show is, of course, saved for Tuesday night. That is, of course, the 1st of October. And if you walk around the streets, you'll see flags and red lanterns decorating a lot of the buildings around here. And of course, tomorrow marks the start of Golden Week, which means it is holiday season now, with schools being closed and many people taking time off work. And so there's a real sense of a holiday mood here in Shanghai and a real sense of festivities ahead of the National Day on Tuesday.
Lindy, as China reflects on 70 years, what are the people's hopes for the future?
Well, Beatrice, I spent much of this past month, September, traveling through the southeast of the country, and that was for CGTN's special series called New China. We were really tracking the change and transformation this country has seen over the past 70 years. And what's really remarkable, of course, is that people really have a sense of hope for the future, and that much of what China has achieved over the past 70 years is set to continue. We spoke to Professor Gao Jian from the Shanghai International Studies University, and this is what he had to say on the matter.
China's economy is promising and it will continue to grow because actually, if you look at China's tradition and culture, we do have a very, very strong social tenacity and also a very strong policy flexibility to adapt our country to varied complicated situations. And we never followed the instruction of the Western societies or the Western economies. Actually, the reason we could make such a great economic success is because we have our own way to develop our economy. And I think in the future, we will resume our way. And I think China's miracle will continue and it will go on undoubtedly.
Well, of course, as you hear there, Beatrice, it's very clear that people have a great sense of pride, not only in what China has achieved over the past 70 years, but perhaps particularly the fact that China has done it in its own way. And that is a sense of pride that you definitely feel is very palpable these days here in Shanghai. And it is something that we know will drive further growth for the next 70 years and beyond. Back to you.
Lindy Mtungana for us there in Shanghai. Thank you. And in Tunisia, the Embassy of China in the North African country is organizing celebrations to mark the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. CGTN's Adnan Chauchi has more.
The Chinese ambassador to Tunisia welcomed his guests at the main hall of the embassy. Tunisian personalities enjoyed the celebration.
We are celebrating our National Day together with our Tunisian friends. There's a warm atmosphere on this occasion. It proves the friendly relation between the Tunisian people and the people of China.
Tunisian ministers and members of parliament congratulated their Chinese friends on the occasion of the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China and on the National Day, and hailed the rapprochement between Tunis and Beijing.
I am honored to represent the Tunisian government on this important day for our Chinese friends. The 70th anniversary is an exceptional day because China is shining. I'm also proud of growing Tunisian-Chinese partnership in all domains.
The ties between Tunisia and China are not only economic, scientific or cultural. The two nations are close friends. We respect and admire China's achievements and successes over the past 70 years.
Tunisian nationals who studied, worked or lived in China for the past 35 years have attended the celebration and shared their passion for China.
It's the best time of my life. I witnessed all the development of the country, the seriousness of the Chinese people, the hard working of the whole society in making sure that everybody stick together to have a better tomorrow. And I think the Chinese story is very inspirational, and I hope the rest of the world, especially in the third world countries, they can learn from this model and they can actually follow this model.
Many Tunisians will watch live on television and social networks the extraordinary military parade and mass pageantry that will take place in Beijing on Tuesday.
The celebrations of the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China will continue next week at the prestigious Confucius Institute at the University of Carthage in Tunis. It will be organized by students, teachers and lovers of Chinese culture, history and civilization. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Sino-Africa Ties is an effort that seeks to improve connections between China and the African continent. Hundreds of Kenyans have gotten the opportunity to study in China through the program. Here's CGTN's Wilskista Nyabwa, who spent a morning with one such Kenyan who has returned to apply the skills he acquired from one of China's institutions at the standard gauge railway line where he works.
My name is Eric Masharia, and I'm a deputy train fleet team leader in the passenger transport department. So normally my work entails supervising and monitoring the train crew. You have two special attendants. Normally my normal day starts at around 6:30 a.m. in the morning. We have a trip from Nairobi to Mombasa. It's an inter-county train. We have several stops that we need to make. So we need to assign ourselves coaches, we need to assign ourselves duties and have goals and targets that we need to achieve before the end of the day. So we stand guard at the doors and welcome the passengers. By welcoming passengers, we greet the passengers, welcome them on board and check their tickets to make sure that they bought the right coaches with the right tickets. We traveled to China on 21st of August. It wasn't my first time. It was my second time actually. I had been to China last year again for another training. So the training was basically a seminar on railway operation and management training for Kenya, sponsored by the Ministry of Commerce of the People's Republic of China, hosted at Beijing Jiaotong University. So it was basically an introduction of the Chinese history, the development of the Chinese history, the Chinese railway history. And from it, what I learned most is passion. If you're passionate enough about something, then trust me, you can be able to do it. It's more of acquisition of knowledge and skills. You know, China has matured in terms of railway management. They've had the railway for more than 60 years. So for us, the best thing we can do, because SGR is very new, it's only 2 years old, the best we can do is get as much knowledge, as much skills as possible from the Chinese, because they're the people who built it, and mostly we are using their standards. We are using their standards to run the railway. Well, challenges are many. Sometimes you find that there are passengers who are not comfortable with the speed. You cannot meet everybody's demands and everybody's expectations. But I believe, for example, the Chinese, they had their first railway built in 1876 by the British, which was operated only for 16 months, and they demolished it. And in the year 1881, they finished their first construction. And it didn't start with a high-speed railway. It started with a slow-speed railway. It's about upgrading, a step at a time. I'd say the future is bright for us.
You're watching Africa Live, still ahead on the program. Libya migrants grateful to be taken in by Rwanda. And we take a closer look at how Thomas Cook's collapse has affected Egypt.
I've learned how to code in a simple way.
Together with other young people, we're able to make this difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
African migrants living near Mexico's southern border are demanding for better living conditions at their camps in the border city of Tapachula. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, visited Tapachula on Saturday to inaugurate a new United Nations center. The center's aim is to help register and look after migrants in Mexico's southern border area. Each year, thousands of people from El Salvador, Guatemala and Honduras head north in search of a better life. Over the years, an increasing number of Africans are joining them with the aim of reaching the United States. The Trump administration this week announced plans to allow only 18,000 refugees to resettle in the United States in the 2020 fiscal year, the lowest number in the history of the modern refugee program.
We don't want anything. We just want to continue along our path. We want to continue north. We don't need anything from Mexico. Nothing. We don't need anything. We want to continue on our journeys.
We have a situation that has seen the violation of human rights, of abuses, of violence, of discrimination. Every day we hear dramatic stories and the number of cases isn't going down. Mexico's role, as we say at the UNHCR, is to provide protection for people who have lost protection from their countries. That is fundamental. The process of applying for asylum is a little complex, but there are many measures to reduce the bureaucracy without impacting on the rights of those calling for asylum.
Meanwhile, African refugees and asylum seekers from Libyan detention centers have been settled into accommodation at transit centers. The group was in the first evacuation flight to Rwanda. The evacuations are part of an unusual new effort to divert and care for people who failed to reach Europe. The Central and East African nations' agreement to take in 500 people who have been trapped in Libya has raised questions and concerns. It is not clear how long they might be held in Rwanda and how free they are to leave. Authorities say the first group of 66 Africans, including women and children, was in a bad state of health and media access to their arrival was restricted.
We don't have to have a lot to give. We can share the little resources we have with a big hurt.
I need for my child to get the necessary vaccinations and medical support. I want to offer her education, shelter, and other basic rights. I also never had a chance to go to school. I would like to have an education.
Meanwhile, the United Nations International Children's Fund has raised concern over a severe acute malnutrition threat in some southern states of Nigeria, especially Borno, Adamawa and Yobe, as a result of Boko Haram insurgent attacks. The fund says over 440,000 children in the three states are at risk. CGTN's Samson Omale reports.
UNICEF says the malnutrition situation has reached global emergency, which needs local and international attention to salvage the situation. The fund's nutrition specialist, Abigail Nukuri, says the problem of malnutrition is worsened by the inability of local and international health and rescue workers to access some communities in Borno State due to the recent increase in insurgent activity. The malnutrition crisis comes as the Nigerian military closes offices of humanitarian organizations like Mercy Corps International and Action Against Hunger, claiming they have been aiding and abetting Boko Haram activities. Folade Olutoyin works for the Search for Common Grounds with offices in Maiduguri.
The report from UNICEF on malnourished children is an alert to Nigeria. It's not only even the Northeast. But the Northeast situation is so peculiar because there are a lot of things working against people. And I'm not just talking about children alone, not living a good life. Sources of where food comes in, if you go to Northeast, are already being censored by the military. You cannot just bring in, fish, things that can help their life get better. Water is not readily available. These are sources of survival for people.
UNICEF says over $12 million is required to close the gap for ready-to-use therapeutic food for malnourished children. Samson Omale, CGTN, Jos, Nigeria.
The world celebrates Tourism Day this week, but it comes amid the disturbing news of the bankruptcy of one of the largest tourism companies in the world, Thomas Cook. The UK traveller was also the first to operate in Egypt. Yasser Hakim looks at the effect its absence can have on the market in the North African country.
Already 25,000 bookings have been cancelled in Egypt once Thomas Cook announced bankruptcy. Before his demise, the UK Traveller had forecast to bring over 200,000 tourists to Egypt in 2019-2020. That's a 35% growth on the year before. But Hisham Idris, whose company works with the Thomas Cook groups, says the losses are not paramount to the tourism in Egypt.
It will affect the low-cost tourism from the UK because Thomas Cook buys hotel rooms and flights for the whole year in advance at wholesale prices. So it sells low-cost trips. Therefore, for the short term, the cost to travel to all Thomas Cook destinations worldwide, including Egypt, will increase.
Idris says the Thomas Cook loss could be other companies' gains.
Large companies like Thomas Cook were monopolizing the UK market to Egypt and stopping any kind of competition. But now it's an opportunity at the next London Tourism Show in November for the small companies like us to take more work from the UK market and benefit from the absence of this monopoly.
The CEO of Egypt's largest traveller also played down the effects of the Thomas Cook crisis.
It's sad that a huge company with history like Thomas Cook would close down. However, the tourists who want to come to Egypt will still come to Egypt. They will not cancel. They will arrive using other travel agencies. Egypt's share will be distributed over different companies.
A tourism ban had been placed on Egypt by the major markets of Russia, USA and the UK after 2011. Though the ban had been lifted recently, the government had already embarked on diversifying its sources of tourism. It has targeted more visitors from Asia and the Far East, especially China.
Tourism in Egypt is the fastest growing in the Middle East and Africa at 40% a year. Experts say the industry will be affected but will survive the Thomas Cook bankruptcy. Yas Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Meanwhile, Nigeria is looking to boost its economy by diversifying and being less dependent on oil. And one of the focal points is tourism. More startups are springing up in this sector with a fusion of various cultures. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam takes a look at one of such startups and how they are breaking through the sector, which had suffered a major setback.
The start of a fresh day at Itoku, one of the fast-budding restaurants in Nigeria's capital city, Abuja. The line is already buzzing and orders coming in, an indication that it's going to be a busy day for waitress Blessing Obinwoge and the rest of the team here. She makes her way out here daily from the outskirts and doesn't get back home until the wee hours. For her, she has a strong notion that the customer is always king.
To serve my customers very well, to make them feel at home, I have to make sure that they don't have any complaint after my services.
Itoku is translated to mean hot pot. It's the brainchild of Chinwe Ekenyere. Her passion for cooking and hosting spurred her to birth the idea. For Chinwe, offering a blend of local and continental cuisine isn't just enough to catch a wide range of local and foreign customers. What's upmost is the service delivery and having her workers share in that vision as well.
Customer service is also one of the things that inspired me to go into this. So I need my staff to be excellent. I need them to be interactive. I need them to be hands-on. I need them to be proactive. I've been kind of training some people way before I started.
And what's more, a continuous assessment of their performance as a team is inevitable.
Working with people is not so easy. They've had their own parts, but every month, we try to meet and do our reviews, check on the complaints we got, check on our strengths, where we got the pass mark. So all we do is try to improve on where we got the pass mark, and where we failed, we try to really work on so that never happens again.
Businesses like Itoku are springing up across the country. They're key to government's diversification plan, as they not only encourage tourism, but are veritable tools for employment, rural-urban integration, revenue generation, as well as cultural exchange. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
And we still have more news for you here on the program. Here's what's ahead. Zambia to start importing electricity from South Africa. And Tunisia hosts workshops on its readiness to join the common market for Eastern and Southern Africa.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
And we begin your business news in Zambia, where the Southern African country will now import electricity from South Africa starting from next month. This will help plug a severe deficit that's causing daily power cuts, lasting about 8 hours. State-owned ZESCO concluded talks with Eskom last week to buy as much as 300 megawatts for 6 months. Zambia has a shortfall of 700 megawatts. That's about a third of peak demand after drought-curbed output at the hydropower stations that it depends on for 80% of its generation. Its deal with South Africa comes at a time when its state power utility, Eskom, is struggling with debt, which currently stands at about $30 billion. This raises concerns on whether the South African power utility will have the ability to carry out the deal. Tunisia has hosted a high-level workshop on its readiness to join the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA. The country will effectively begin its trade with COMESA member states by the end of 2019. CGTN's Adnan Chauchi has the details.
A list of products to be exported towards the COMESA is under preparation by a committee gathering the private sector and the different representatives of the concerned Tunisian ministries.
This list that includes a variety of agricultural, processed and industrial products will be sent to the COMESA in Lusaka next October to be ratified during the Council of Member States Trade Ministers due in November.
COMESA Secretary General pointed out the importance of Tunisia's adherence to this big market that gathers 21 countries with over 500 million consumers.
I think it's important for Tunisia to join the Common Market for Southern Eastern Africa, COMESA, because it has 21 member states, had 550 million people with a combined GDP of over $1 trillion. So there's a great opportunity for Tunisia to participate by exporting goods and services.
The official added that the COMESA undertakes to support the country to boost its trade and economic development through fruitful collaboration with the public and private sectors.
Tunisian goods become much more competitive if we're member states to export to other member states than would have been in the past when they were not members. So it's a great opportunity for Tunisia to have a wider, much wider market.
Tunisia officially became the 20th member of COMESA in July 2018 at the summit of heads of state and government of the member countries held in Lusaka, Zambia.
The Minister of Trade and the President of the Confederation of Industry assert that COMESA membership will provide large commercial opportunities for Tunisia and allow it to access customs advantages, capture new markets, and sign new tripartite partnership agreements. Adnan Shawashi, CGTN, Tunis.
A UK commercial court has granted the Nigerian government a request to appeal against the court's ruling that initially allowed a private Irish firm, P&ID, to seize more than $9 billion in assets from the West African country. The court also approved the Nigerian government's application for stay of execution, preventing the firm from any asset seizures while the legal challenge is pending. The judge on the case has, however, ordered the government to pay $200 million to the court within 60 days so as to ensure the stay of execution.
$9.6 billion is incredible. About 2.5% of our GDP. It's unacceptable. It could cripple the whole country. We already have a tottering economy, and you come and levy that kind of thing. So I hope the government will wake up. I blame both the PDP government and the APC government. The PDP government, that's where this thing started. It didn't start under this PDP or the APC government. It started with the PDP government. But I think if the APC government had risen up to the task before now, we wouldn't have that judgment executed against us without us taking the firm decision we should have. At a point, I understand it was 860 million that was. It grew up to 9.6 billion under the watch of somebody. And people have been taken to court. I hope it won't end there because we have a way of sweeping things under the carpet here.
A lot of Kenyan businesses have stopped accepting the high-denomination old currency 1,000 shillings note ahead of its demonetization deadline of Monday, September the 30th. The Kenyan Central Bank made the announcement in June in a move seen as cleaning the system of illegally acquired money. CGTN's Terry Wangare reports.
Kenya's central bank governor, Patrick Njoroge, displays Kenya's new currency notes. The money came into circulation on June 1st, 2019 and replaces portraits of the country's former presidents as required by a constitution passed in August 2010. While a lot of the old currency will circulate alongside new notes, the old 1,000 shilling denomination note ceases to be legal tender on September 30th this year.
There were two reasons, principal reasons. The first is to deal with the illicit financial flows that we have seen. The second is to deal with counterfeits that have begun to emerge.
What we've had in the country is obviously a lot of this money flying around the system. It's corrupt money, it's been running around in gunny sacks, it's been flowing around the system illegally. And I think this is an attempt to formalize the economy and gain better control over money circulation in the economy. And therefore I think it will be effective. And, there'll be some losers, but those losers got this money easy come, easy go.
In June, the central bank said that there were roughly 218 million 1,000 shilling notes in circulation. About half of that has so far been changed, giving indications that the system could have been cleaned off of a lot of dirty money. But not without mischief.
If you look at these car dealerships, if you look at the central bank governor himself spoke about people buying cows as a way of laundering money. There are many methods that people have been using for laundering money in this economy.
This is a matter of national importance. This is a matter of national security, meaning it is important for us to see that we are doing this in order to deal with prospective problems that would jeopardize our way of life.
Since the demonetization announcement, the Kenya shilling has lost more than 2% of its value to the US dollar. The shilling is currently trading at 103 shillings and 92 cents per dollar. The central bank governor, however, says that the weakness is not linked to invalidation of the 1,000 shilling note. Terry Wangare, CGTN.
Tech giant Google is investing millions in training young Africans with digital skills over the next 3 years. The US-based company recently launched a computer science program in South Africa for school children. It is part of Google's commitment to create a strong tech foundation for the continent, which is globally competitive. CGTN's Julie Shire reports.
Tech giant Google has trained 2,400 South African scholars with critical digital skills over the last 4 years. 16-year-old Seth Schultz was one of the learners who benefited from the pilot program.
I did a mobile app development course. I passed, graduated, got my certificate. I've developed an app to save water in our area in Cape Town, because last year we were in a water crisis. So I developed an app that instructs us how to save water and allows the community to view our dam levels.
Google is now scaling the project to reach 30,000 learners in primary and high school to prepare them for an increasing number of tech-focused jobs.
We want to make sure that 60% of the ones that are trained are young girls and 10% are actually special needs schools. But the majority of the training is going to be related to public schools, where these young learners don't actually have access to this sort of curriculum.
It's part of an ambitious Grow with Google strategy to develop 100,000 coders and skill 10 million young Africans in just over 3 years.
Getting those digital skills in place, getting coding skills in place at a very young age will lead to a more technology-oriented future, will open up economic opportunity. Right? We've seen this in other parts of the world. What we're in the process of doing is figuring out what is the right mix of things to do that will work in Africa.
Google is also investing in tech startups and social entrepreneurs. It's made more than $20 million in funding available to organizations tackling pressing social and environmental issues in African communities. Julie Shah, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And we still have more news for you here on the program. Here's what's ahead. We'll take you to Ethiopia for one of the country's grandest holidays.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
AfricaLive. Find your voice.
Let's go to Ethiopia, where one of the grandest holidays, known as the Finding of the True Cross, is being celebrated across the country. This UNESCO-registered intangible cultural heritage of the world is also attended by tourists who come from across the globe to attend this spectacular event. Here's CGTN's Gerum Chala.
Hours before dusk, people across Ethiopia busy preparing for one of the most prestigious religious festivals in the country, the Finding of the True Cross. Putting together a tower of dry wood, grass, flowers and covered with the national flag for a later bonfire is one of the biggest tasks. It is an exciting moment for everyone.
We prepare everything here. The Orthodox Church also gives us candles and carpets, among other things, for this grand event. We contribute by our efforts to erect this bonfire tower. This is our practice every year, and we are happy.
Right after the New Year celebrations, it's Meskel, which is our grand holiday. It allows us to come together in harmony to burn bonfires, worship, eat and serve others. It's at night that we do all that. It's very, very symbolic for unity and togetherness.
Meskel, as it is locally known as, is a time of the year people also get together for a grand celebration in the capital, Addis Ababa. And night falls. Here at Meskel Square, the bonfire surrounded by millions of believers burns, also known as a Demera, symbolize how the true cross was found.
It is Queen Eleni who vowed to unearth the Holy Cross on which Jesus Christ was crucified. She told her son, King Constantine, her visions, and he assigned her an army to help her accomplish her missions. Queen Eleni, then advised by an old wise man, lit a bonfire. The smoke of that bonfire has led her to the exact place where the true cross was buried.
This is a UNESCO-registered intangible cultural heritage of the world. It's colorful, it's religious, it is Ethiopian. And until next year, everyone dearly awaits. The celebration of Orthodox Christians is also a venue that brings all together, including tourists from across the world. Ethiopia wants to capitalize more on Meskal and Demera celebrations to increase its revenues from tourism and build a better image for the country. Grumtala CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Let's now shift focus to the world of creativity. Pro Tusi is a Johannesburg recycling artist who uses melted plastic and cans to paint. Tusi's journey as an artist started not long ago, but he is fast growing with his unique style. CGTN's Yolisa Njamela visited a Pro Tusi and brings us this story.
Pro Tusi's artwork demonstrates his mastery and versatility using a variety of mediums. He is an emerging master of recycle art. Tusi uses tin cans, discarded single-use plastic bags, and a variety of other solid waste materials.
Most of the time I go around the streets of Jozi, I pick up from the dustbin. Sometimes I go to the Bogley stores and the taverns. That's where I get most of my materials.
Tusi's career progressed from sketch artist to acrylic paint, and now he mainly focuses on recycled materials.
The reason why I started working on plastic is, firstly, I realized that the world is facing a high problem of plastics and stuff. That is why even in some countries, for example, like Rwanda, they've banned the plastics. Whenever a company produces plastics, they fine it. Also here in South Africa, I think they try by all means to eliminate it, but it has been a challenge so far.
The artist's unique lifelike portraits are captivating, turning rubbish into a priceless treasure.
If you can check very well, most of the pieces that I've worked on, they are portraits, but I can do more than that. The reason why I've been doing portraits a lot, because in each and every face that I've worked on, it tells a different story.
Pro Tusi takes extra pride in his work and therefore takes his time when working on each piece.
I do my own frames. So I started on a white plastic, and then I sketch it using a marking pen, depending on the subject that I'm working on. It's a process, like on this painting, I've taken about 2 months on it, and I'm still working on it.
Pro has a special affinity for women. He reflects this in his artwork.
To be honest with you, when I started this journey of recycling art, I chose to do women. The reason why I chose to do women, I was raised by a very, very strong woman who inspired me a lot up until where I am right now. So I've got this high regard of each and every woman that comes in my life, and I so much respect women.
Tusi's work has already been displayed in numerous exhibits, and he has big ambitions. Yolisa Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
And coming up in your sports news, Kenyans and Ethiopians stand by the Netherlands' Sifan Hassan in the women's 10,000 meters race at the ongoing IAAF World Championships in Doha, Qatar.
Africa, where champions